Charlie Zelli, and this is the Blue Line Extension Corridor Management Committee, November 12th. Welcome. Just normal housekeeping. Spoiler alert, it's a digital meeting. We're continuing to do that. But if anybody is watching from the public, you're very welcome to share thoughts with Sophia Guinness. That's sophia.ginis@metrotransit.org. And if you give any thoughts or comments, those questions and answers will be posted along with reports on our website. And that website is Blue Line EXT, just one word, bluelineext.org. And everything you want to know about the Blue Line extension up to date is there. So as a way to just kind of establishing our quorum and a way to introduce everybody, why don't I call out the organization and people can jump in and say their names and say hello. And I'll start with Met Council members. I'm here, but anyone else? Maybe not yet. How about Hennepin County?
I was going to defer to my senior member of the board of directors, commissioners, Ms. Fernando. So Irene, please go first.
Love being called a senior. That's wonderful. Irene Fernando, Hennepin County Commissioner, District 2, and also the Rail Authority Chair. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Landy, District 1, Commissioner.
All right. Welcome. Brooklyn Park.
Hi, Tanya West Hafner.
Hi, welcome.
Council member.
Right. Crystal? All right, how about Robbinsdale? I see.
George Selman, Robbinsdale City Council, alternate.
Morning, George. Golden Valley. All right, how about Minneapolis?
Abdi Salah, alternate to Mayor Fry.
Welcome.
Jeremiah Ellison.
Oh, hi, Jeremiah. Great.
Jeremiah Ellison, council member, Ward 5.
Great. Anyone else from Minneapolis? Brooklyn Center? All right, how about New Hope? All right, Maple Grove.
Mike Opat, staff, sitting in for Mayor Mark Stephenson.
Hey, Mike. Osseo. No, how about the Minneapolis Park Board?
Chair Zelli, this is Council Member Chambliss.
Oh, hi, Riva. Welcome. All right, the Blue Line Coalition.
Good morning, Ricardo Perez, Blue Line Coalition and the Alliance.
Great, Ricardo. And now the Community Advisory Committee.
Jason Greenberg, co-chair.
Hey, Jason.
There.
And the Business Advisory Committee.
Mike Steinhauser, co-chair.
Felicia Perry, co-chair.
Hey, Mike. Felicia. How about the MAC, Airports Commission?
Good morning, everyone. Bridget Reif, Vice President for Planning and Development with the Airports Commission.
Hi, Bridget. And MnDOT, I see Mike there.
Yep. Good morning. I'm Mike Barnes, MnDOT's Metro District Engineer.
All righty. And any representative from Metro Transit? other than Met Council. Okay, did I miss any members of the CMC?
Chair, this is George from Robbinsdale. I did get a text from Mayor Blonigan. He is listening, and I sent him the link that worked for me, so hopefully he'll be joining us soon.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, George. Well, let's get started. We have some great and interesting information and some updates in the meeting. But first, let's approve the meeting summary from it was sent out last week, and this is from the meeting that was so aptly chaired by Commissioner Fernandez. Thank you, Irene. This was October 14th. And is there any edits, any corrections that anybody has seen? And if not, maybe let's approve. Maybe there's a motion and a second, and then Don can call the roll. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I, Mike Steinhauser, make a motion to approve as presented.
Thanks, Mike. Second?
Second, Melundi.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, no other discussion. Dawn, are you here?
I am here. I can take the roll.
Lovely, thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss,
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Fernando,
Aye.
Abdi Salah from Minneapolis,
Aye.
Councilmember Selman,
Yes.
Councilmember West Hafner,
Aye.
Ricardo Perez,
Aye.
Bridget Reef,
Aye.
Mike Barnes,
Aye.
Jason Greenberg,
Aye.
Alicia Perry,
Aye.
Mike Steinhauser,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
Aye, well, those minutes are approved. All right, let's jump into some committee reports. We're going to hear from the Community Advisory Committee, followed by the Business Advisory Committee. That's Jason Greenberg, followed by Felicia Perry. Jason, go ahead.
So we just had our meeting earlier this week and got a lot of updates. Talked to C. Terrence and about the anti-displacement work that's going to be happening, and really the discussion in the CAC centered around the anti-displacement groups and the work table and all of that, and how that's different than some of the groups that are working out there today, and really the comments around not just having those groups that are already out in the community, but having the actual community members and getting community members into the anti-displacement work group. We did a lot of talking around the design updates around Minneapolis, and lots of questions about how choices are made with the project team, and how that is really based on feedback from the community and what does the community place value on. And so we're seeing a lot of different options, but also learning that, as we get feedback, that will dictate, okay, these things are more important, whether it's, maybe impacts to buildings versus placement of the station. So lots of conversations around that. And then we reviewed the evaluation framework and timeline. One thing that did come up in our conversation was just a question around, or the CAC wanted to ask if this project will be utilizing money from the Reconnecting Communities money that is available from the new infrastructure bill. So I don't know if there's an answer to that. It just was something that was brought up that the CAC is curious if the Reconnecting Communities money will be utilized as part of this project.
Thank you, Jason, and good report. And maybe just to jump on that question, since you just asked it, and others can weigh in. That certainly is an opportunity, but it's pretty early in the process, and that bill has just been signed and passed. I think FTA and the DOT needs to kind of work through how it's going to administer those funds, but also those funds need to be appropriated. So sadly, they're not real until the actual programs are in place. But I'll just speak for Met Council. I think we're watching it carefully and certainly looking for opportunities. And I don't know if Commissioner Fernando or Lundy want to weigh in, but it's an interesting thing to look at.
Thank you.
Felicia, do you want to give your report? Then we'll open up for questions.
Sure, thank you. Report from the BAC. We actually met last week, I believe on the 9th. Similar to the CAC, we got an update from the anti-displacement working group. And I think we'll be having that here, so I won't go into a whole bunch of detail for you all. But there was good information there. We also spent a bit of time on the Minneapolis design updates and going through some updated visuals and information and getting a bit of insight on how, the type of things that community will be seeing this month in the workshops happening in the Minneapolis workshops happening. I will say that over and over again, every time I'm engaging with these visuals as a community member, it is very overwhelming. And two folks who have gone to the Minneapolis workshops this week have said the same thing. So this is a process for everyone that we're all going through. Is like kind of this reminder I'm giving myself and everyone, because it's a lot at times. And so I really appreciate the project team in working really intentionally to hold that space and even, you know, doing everything we can to manage it. So, but spent a bit of time on that. And then we got, what was it, the project evaluation criteria update. So there was, and I think that's also something that you all will be presented with today. So I won't go into a bunch of detail there. And did I miss anything, Mike?
Sorry, a little slow on the unmute button. No, I think you got it all. I think you got it all.
Great, thanks for your reports. Any comments or questions from the committee on the two reports? All right, well, thanks for your work, and we appreciate your giving your time and engagement on all this important time for this for the project. So let's just jump to update from our anti-displacement working group. And Terrence, it's great to see you. I'm sorry I missed the last CMC meeting, but it's just really great that you and Kira's work, along with Kathy Gold, are working on this project. I kind of understand that this is also real-time feedback we're getting, not just something to wait 18 months. And I really appreciate that work. And I love that you're kind of you're all, this effort is so important, and it's kind of equal to all the public engagement and all the technical work we're doing. Displacement is kind of just central to our restorative process. So Kathy and Terrence, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that very much. It's really great to be here, you know, as we're onboarding into this project. And yes, I think like the CAC and the BAC talked about, we've been having a lot of really good conversations in community. And of course, you know, just can't understate the importance of this work. And I think what a lot of folks are hoping coming out of this process. And so it's been really good for us to do this. So we're really appreciative of the opportunity. You know, so the biggest thing, you know, over the past, you know, month, you know, I think what we've been doing is really onboarding, of course, with Hennepin County, the Met Council, as well as with community, sort of, you know, building towards those shared expectations around the outcomes of this work. And I think, yes, like you said, Commissioner Zelli, it is, it's a real time sort of thing. You know, there's 18 months in which we'll be doing this work, but there's not everything's going to be delivered at the end of those 18 months. There's plenty of things that we know that can be delivered up front. And so I think in the beginning of this project, it's really understanding those different expectations. I think where we already know things, we sort of really want to queue those things up to be recommended to move forward to this committee and others to discuss. And so I've been spending a lot of time with folks, connecting with community and different stakeholders, even around the simplest sort of things, but really important things like when we say displacement, or when you say displacement, what do we mean by that? Because of course we could be talking about business and residents, but of course, other aspects of displacement have come up, such as cultural displacement as well too. And so really shaping up our research agenda to sort of fully encompass, and so for our overall agenda to make sure that we have the conversations that folks find are really important. So at the end of this process, folks are like, don't say the sort of thing like, oh, I wish you would have talked about this. As much as we can avoid that, we're really focusing on that not being the case. And so I've been spending a lot of time getting together with folks with coffee and one-to-ones, say on Zoom or WebEx, and just really having those conversations with folks about their expectations. And so for the folks who are in this meeting, if I haven't done that with you yet, I'm certainly looking forward to doing that in the near future as well. Ultimately, in the very, very near future, we want to get out the call to, for folks who want to be on the anti-displacement table, the anti-displacement working group itself. We're still really queuing that up because in a sense, it's really important to get the foundation of that group to be one in which everybody trusts. And so the question is who needs to be in that group is one that's very, very important. And so in that sort of meeting with folks and along with the expectations for the overall project, it's getting very clear on the expectations for that table. So that should be something that comes out very soon. Hopefully that group, or I expect that group to be defined by the end of this year for sure, and the group to start meeting hopefully by the end of this year too. But really developing that proposal with community and with other folks is really important. So we've been spending a lot of time doing that as well. Of course, talked about that with the CAC and the BAC past 2 times that we've met. And then the last part, which I think is the biggest part, which is organizing for research and engagement work. Right, it takes a lot of administrative organization to queue up. I think we have at least 7 different research studies that we're beginning. So we began sort of hiring graduate research assistants, which is sort of just our process at the University of Minnesota for doing a lot of this work. But of course, one of the big questions is what are the questions that are important within this anti-displacement work to be answered in order for folks to sort of have the full information that they need in order to make the recommendation at the end of it. And so we've been asking community, I think the last meeting that I came to here, and I want to put this back out there again, we have the questions that we're asking. Hopefully everybody has a proposal. We'll get that out to you as well. But what other questions need to be part of our research agenda? And so we've gotten a lot of emails over the past month around different questions. And so we're working that into our research agenda and queuing that up for them to be answered. But there's still, of course, a lot of time. And we have a lot of time built within our schedule to really slow down and move at the pace of community and other stakeholders in order for folks to really know all that they need to know in order for them to make the most powerful recommendation that they can. And so we've been really organizing around that, as well, of course, connecting with the community engagement cohort that Hennepin County and the Met Council curated over the past couple of years. And so working into a plan of working alongside them. And so I know that will be kind of coming into a more particular outcome over this next month. And so I'm queuing that stuff up as well. So working a lot with folks who are organizing in community, sitting down with a lot of stakeholders, making sure our research agenda is fully encompassing of folks' questions, and really getting this anti-displacement working group table has really been our work over the past month. And so it's been very full and very good, and looking forward to setting up this good foundation for a long 18-month process to deliver good recommendations at the end of the day.
Great, thank you. And thanks for your work. I really look forward to tangible results as the result of this process. And when I think it's not just what we're studying, it's how we go about it. And I know, and I feel that we're on the right path to be really led by community, members, so that we are really being this project be kind of held accountable toward something that's different. And I know all project partners feel that way. I you know, I have personal you know, experience with the results when we haven't used this approach, and particularly in highways. I just could do a little shout out. I was telling a few people. I just went to an exhibit at the Hennepin History Museum called Human Toll. It's it's small but a very dense exhibit that describes the effects of building that I-35W way through the heart of a community. And so we just, you know, history is there to be understood and learned from. So I think that when we think about reparations in this project, it becomes very tangible when you see real stories. Anyway, thanks for your work, and we really look forward to your reports with CMC and with our, of course, our business and community advisory committees as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions, thoughts on our anti-displacement working group?
Good morning.
Okay.
This is Ricardo Perez with Blue Line Coalition. Sorry, just a quick question.
Sure.
So as we're like envisioning and starting to walk into the results of some of the anti-displacement work, is there a plan on incorporating some of that work into the outreach efforts that the county is currently leading? So I know that we've been seeing, for example, the pictures of the visualizations, but will community ever get to hear about some of the unintended consequences of displacement or some of the solutions, or and I don't know if this information is coming later with the timing of the project, but I'm just curious about that strategy or plan to incorporate this into all of the efforts.
Hey, Ricardo, just to clarify, you're asking, is the anti-displacement information, or the displacement, the potential for displacement as a result of these two existing alternatives going to be discussed within this current timing of the outreach around the two different alignments? Is that what you're asking? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, like perhaps like, yeah, so like in the short term and then in the like long term, is there a plan to incorporate that work into the outreach? Yeah, thank you, Stearns.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. Yeah, you know, that's definitely something that you know, the project team, we talked about this week. And so I wouldn't say that the plan is finalized, but that's certainly the intention going forward, you know, before the final decision is made around the alignment in the next couple of months. I think there's stuff that we already do know about displacement, you know, as a result of even the previous alignments within the context of the blue line, but you know, as much as we also know about the existing green line and blue lines as well. And so I wouldn't say it's finalized, and we should definitely talk about that more too. But we actually just talked about that this week too. As much as we can get that conversation within the current alignment conversation, we want to do that for sure.
Great, thanks, Etans, and thanks for the question. All right, let's move to the Minneapolis design update. You know, I have you know, witnessed some of this work, and of course, the process itself. We're getting more granular now, and you know, we're realizing how you know, how this both is going to look in these various configurations and the effects on the neighborhoods, the businesses, the residents. So, Nick Landwehr is here, and take it away, Nick.
Right. Well, thank you, Chair Zolli, and good morning, committee members. Wanted to just talk a little bit about the work we're doing here in November as we're rolling out to the workshops to the community, specifically in Minneapolis, and the intent of these workshops is to discuss the two route options, give folks the idea through concepts and some alternatives of what what the opportunities and challenges of either route option, and give folks a way to have an opinion on moving forward with which route alternative to move forward with, whether it's a Lowry, Washington, or a West Broadway route through Minneapolis. So really, these workshops are, I think, as Felicia mentioned, there's a lot of information here, and we're really encouraging folks to come and take quite a few bites at the apple. There's a come to our in-person open houses and workshops to see everything laid out side by side. All of this information is available on our project website, bluelineext.org. So folks can either pull it up in a PDF form and zoom in and see how things work and fit, or potentially work and fit. And then also we have on our website the public coordinate tool that folks can click on that, see the different information, see some visuals of how things fit within each section, and leave comments and suggestions on it. So it's going to be it's a really robust tool, and we're encouraging folks to really take quite a few bites again at this apple, so they can fully comprehend all the opportunities and what the challenges are that we're going up against with this. So the feedback we received from the workshops and the conversations that we're having this month, they're going to inform the draft report that's going to come out in December, and then followed by that draft report will be a final recommendation that'll come out to the community for community support alignment in March. So next slide, please. And please, I'll give some opportunities, Chair, to stop and take some questions along the way here, because there is a lot of information. So really what I'm going to roll out here is just how just a high level of what information, how we've organized it, and where we can find it. I'm not going to dive into every alternative that we have out there, because that would take hours for us today. So it's really a higher level of how to find things, and again, encourage folks to come at this and many of the different opportunities, whether it's in person or through our online tools. So Minneapolis routes, again, we're trying to go forward to the public so people can be informed about our route opportunities, whether a Lowry Washington route or a West Broadway route is going to be the alternative that's brought forward into design. We broke these areas up into sections to be able to organize our information a lot better. So sections 1 through 4 are West Broadway. So section 1 starts down at Target Field Station at the lower right-hand corner of the graphic that's shown here, and follows that link, as we've discussed before, from Target Field Station up to approximately Plymouth at Plymouth and Lindale. Section 2 is from Lindale Avenue, from basically Plymouth up to West Broadway. Section 3 is along West Broadway from Lindale to Irving, and then section 4 is West Broadway from that Irving all the way up to where Lowry and West Broadway intersect at County Road 81, right at North Memorial. We're kind of moving around here. So for the Washington Lowry, our link section to get from Target Field Station to at Washington Avenue is section 5. And shows the opportunities and alternatives there. Section 6 takes us from that Plymouth Avenue area along Washington Avenue up to Lowry. And then section 7 is the segment of Lowry from Washington Avenue again to that intersection of West Broadway near North Memorial. So next slide, please. So some of the things we're going to highlight in these simplified drawings, and some of the things that maybe have been slowly updated as we're rolling these out, are we've simplified the links from the downtown area. So that is the area that's shown in the yellow box. That's how we get from Target Field Station to either West Broadway or to Lowry route. And as we've rolled up our sleeves, worked with our project partners, with the city, with the county, and just operationally looked at how things would fit, we've really simplified what we used to have as kind of a lot of different route options that we had in all the different colors, and it was kind of a spaghetti arrangement coming through there. Now we've refined that quite a bit more with some alternatives that we feel are viable and what show where the opportunities could be with either one of those links. We are also adding a route option for that segment 3 area on West Broadway to incorporate potentially 21st Avenue into the alignment. And then we also have up there the options for the connections of Lowry and West Broadway as we connect to County Road 81 near North Memorial. Next slide, please. So this is the same map, but has some of the alternatives that we're showing for folks to visualize how we can fit within each one of these routes. So as you can see in each one of the sections, we have a couple options out there so folks can see again, if we do one option, how the geometry or alignment can have some challenges, how it may have some property impacts, and then an alternative to that maybe reduces or changes some of those impacts through there. We'll look at it today at section 7, a couple options that we have up in that area, and then you can see in the middle in that section 3 there are quite a few alternatives just because of the challenges we have in that area to look at and review. The key here is we're really looking for a input on the route alternatives, and we don't need to decide on any of these alternatives that are shown on each one of the routes, but it will give an idea of how we can move forward. Those can be carried forward with a route alternative as we get further into design. I'm going to stop here if there's any questions, Chair.
Any questions at this point where we are? All right, well, Nick, keep going.
Okay, we'll keep going here. So,
Chair, excuse me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, George.
George from Robbinsdale had a problem with my mute button there. Nick, can you quick go back to screen 8? I wanted to read one thing completely to make sure I got it right. Yeah, the final bullet point, the final recommendation for a community supported alignment, what's the criteria for that, or how does that happen?
Okay, Chair, Council Member Selman, what we're going to do here is the two bullets go hand in hand. So we'll have a draft report that's going to roll out in December that shows all the data, all the input that we have been receiving and looking at for both of the route options. So it'll really be just to kind of lay that out. We'll have a 45-day comment period on that, so folks can dive into it, evaluate it, and have comments on it. And then those comments will feed into our final recommendation. So that will be a staff recommendation that of the community supported alignment that will have all that information in the backup from the draft report that will move into that. So
yeah. Really it's a staff supported alignment based on their interpretation of community input.
Well, we're going to have a chance, and we're going to hear later on about the process for developing the criteria, and based upon public comment. And then I think in our next CMC meeting, we'll have a more robust conversation about the criteria. So we'll have chances to talk about that.
Thank you.
And Charlie, real quick, Mike Steinhauser, I don't understand this process as well. So from this final recommendation for community support, there's a next step. Do you eventually go to the city of Minneapolis and Brooklyn Park and Robbinsdale and sit with the city council members and discuss it with them? Is that toward the end of the process?
I think it's iteratively, as I understand it, but I don't know, Nick or Sam, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I could start out, maybe Nick, just so, Mike, I think it's a really great question, right? Because it's folks don't see some of the coordination that happens behind the scenes. And so Nick and his team have been meeting almost weekly with some of our city staff members to talk about design. And as design evolves, we have also met with some of our policy makers as well. So folks are aware of design and how it progresses and some of the issues and challenges and opportunities that we're moving forward. I would also offer up is that when a final recommendation it comes out as part of the March report, that does allow us to kind of move forward with more detailed design. So we're about 4% now. So as we continue to evolve design, we will be working in concert with our community members, with our policymakers, and with community staff. And there's real distinct check-ins at 30%, 60%, 90% check-in. And then there's also the process of municipal consent, where we are seeking the support and recommendation from communities, from cities, particularly on the design. And the design really focuses on the alignment, station locations, and pieces like that. So there is also a formal process that supports the design moving forward.
Okay, thank you. That helps me understand it.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, go ahead, Irene.
Yeah, so this slide also, I was in whatever other meeting, and I just want to express, I also kind of paused at this slide, and so I will attempt to repeat an answer I got, and hopefully it's still correct. So as I understand it, the draft report in December will contains all of the options that Nick has shown, with more kind of detail. Like nothing is getting kind of cut out. It's really about getting an understanding of all of the different kind of routes that have been placed before people, before all of us. And then there's this comment period, I think it's 45 days. And the final recommendation, I believe, is not meant to say, and now we're done. It's meant to kind of graduate us into environmental review. This was a key part that I had not heard previously, and I haven't heard it yet today. So I just want to state that we have not yet done, we're not yet at the stage where we would do an environmental review on the alignment. And so final, I think, might feel more final than it actually is. And perhaps for those who are closer to the work, not even including myself, that might be a bit of what you're feeling from policymakers and representatives on the call, that final seems really final. And if I understood my previous meeting correctly, that's not the case. This is about getting to an alignment so that we can graduate into further review, specifically environmental review. Unfortunately, I was not able to retain where it goes after that, but I think Sam probably covered that. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. And this will get clearer as we get into this presentation. I think it's important to note that even as Nick goes through these different alternatives and different kind of subsections, we're not actually designing, we're just showing options to help develop, the thinking. And I think that's, kind of helpful to not just have things abstract, but to look at it and it starts getting more real.
Yeah, and actually, wait, first off, was I right with the environmental review? And can someone speak to what that means? I was not around when that occurred originally. I'm sure others were. But what does the next stage represent? If this stage is about getting to a single line, what does that environmental review and that kind of deeper or graduated stage represent? Because I think that's probably what you're hearing in some of these questions. Like, what's, well, then what are we kind of focusing on in that stage? Can someone speak to that for a couple minutes?
Yeah, and Chair and Commissioner, I think it's a great question, right? Because, we've always said that this process is a marathon and we still have some really good work to do. This process of identifying a community supported alignment is sort of the first 5K of that marathon. That next 5K, if you will, is getting us into that environmental process, not to step all the way back, but we did have a recommended corridor decision here that cleared the federal environmental process on the first route. We still need to go through that process again because of the new alignments. We know that there's opportunities. We also know that there are impacts. The environmental process allows us to begin to quantify and articulate what those are in greater detail. So we'll understand, particularly what are impacts to air quality, what are our impacts to any environmental structures, historical structures in the corridor as well, and really be able to understand what this project moves forward. And again, the environmental process allows us to understand the positive and also the impacts of a project like this. And then we can also move into what we need to do to mitigate some of those impacts as well. So it's a really good process for understanding the project in its entirety in terms of what it brings to the community. It also, we also delve in a little bit more in terms of its impacts for ridership and its positive pieces there as well. It is a process that takes us about a year and a half. And Commissioner, as you said, there's always the opportunity for us to be checking in and working with the community. It is a public process. It is not something that we do in the back room. It definitely has a very transparent process as well, and provides a lot of the community members, I think, that do have concern, definitely an outlet to also be a part of this larger environmental review that we will go through.
Thank you. So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, forgive me, everybody, if everybody already knows this. So it's a public year-ish process that is prescribed by the FTA or the, okay, got it.
That is correct.
I was not in this position when we went through it last time. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
And that's the NEPA law. It's an environmental public process law for environmental review.
Exactly. And there's also, and if I can add, Chair, there's also the Minnesota process too, the MEPA, so the Minnesota process that we will also be doing. So this is our, what we are required to do is to clear this project both environmentally at the state level as well as the federal level. Yes.
Okay, NEPA and MEPA. Okay. Everybody clear up? Actually, thank you, actually, George and Irene. This is a good conversation, and we're going to get more clarity as to how this process works. Nick, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair. So again, I'm going to put in another pitch. This is an opportunity for folks to take quite a few bites at the apple. So again, we are having the in-person workshops that I think we're finding they're very informative for folks to walk through. But this slide here talks a little bit about some of our online information and where we have it. So public coordinate on our project website is the tool that we see here or on the screen, and layouts for each one of the sections can be found on there by clicking the numbers. So the little blue circles with the numbers on it relate to the sections along each alignment, the 1 through 4 for West Broadway and the 5 through 7 along the Washington Lowry. So if you click on those little blue buttons, that brings up some of the alternatives, or brings up all the alternatives that we have available for each one of these sections. The cameras show some of the visuals, the bird's eye views that we've shown before in this venue, and then there's also the opportunities to go in there and see the comments that are being made, the suggestions, and some of the opportunities that people are suggesting as we go through there. So you can directly comment on the design options and issues and opportunities that folks see, and it gives a chance for us to record it and get that feedback. So that is available. In addition to what's in there, also on the website are a PDF format of all the alternatives along the alignment, because there is we are very high level design. There's not, there's so much more information after we get through the environmental and into design that'll go into these. But even at a very basic phase of the alternatives, these are really concepts that we have up there. But there is quite a bit of information. So to zoom in on that for folks using the PDFs out there, I think is also very helpful. Next slide. So what we really are doing are along these route options, we're seeking community impact. So what we're trying to show is some alternatives that show what the potential, again, challenges are with an alternative, and what some of the opportunities are going to be out there. So really a higher level of looking at, okay, what geometrics, if we change it, how does that change how an alignment fits within each one of the routes, and can we adjust station locations, and how does that fit within in each one of those routes. So again, we'll have multiple alternatives in each one of these sections, so folks can see what those are and evaluate those farther, and as the project advances. We do not need to at this time rule out any of the alternatives that are shown. Really, they're to help inform a route selection out there. And so then as we select a route going into next year, we will use these alternatives to move forward, to refine the designs and go through that environmental process and work with the community here to get that community support for this. Again, the project team will capture all the input that we're getting from this website through our in-person meetings. Those will inform that draft report. Again, the draft report will have a 45-day comment period. From the comments that we get there, we'll use those to inform that final route recommendation report, and that will have a 30-day comment period also, so folks have a chance to pull it up and look at it. So what I'm going to show here is just some of the information as we dive more into these routes, looking at some of the alternatives. We're going to review a section along Lowry Avenue and a section along West Broadway. And in each one of these, we're only really showing 2 of the alternatives just for time's sake. There is so much information, but we want to just show what those opportunities are. So for section 7, I'm going to have I'll have 2 alternatives, and in section 3, there's multiple, I think there's at least 6 or 5 or 6 alternatives. We're only just going to walk through 2 of them to see what the differences are. So next slide, please, Sophia. So as we look at the drawings, there is quite a bit of information on it. We've tried to keep it fairly simple to show how these alternatives will fit within context of the routes. We'll show the LRT track area. In blue, we'll show state where potential station platforms are and alternate station platforms are in that yellow. Roadway is shown in a grayish color. Bridges, where we have bridges or structures, it's in orange. One of the key things as you look at these maps, we've outlined in a green line where there's publicly owned parcels out here, so publicly owned properties. So that helps on the alternatives and understanding what those impacts and who's impacted by those. If there's a retaining wall, there'll be a red line. Sidewalks will be shown usually on the outside of the roadway section behind the curb in a white. Again, medians will be shown similar to the roadway pavement. One of the key things that we're going to look at as we look at the alternatives are building impacts, and those will be in pink. And right now we're at a very, very high level of design. What we're being very conservative, meaning if we feel that there's a good potential that a building would be impacted, we are showing that in pink so we can identify where those locations are and talk with the property owners in those locations. And see what opportunities we have here. As we get farther into design, as we pick a route, as we start looking at alternatives, we'll make every effort we can to mitigate what those impacts and try to reduce them. But right now we're more on the conservative side of showing what those are. But the impacts will also be very apparent as we show different alternatives, how some properties may be impacted. Again, those are building impacts, not just a foot or 2 of right of way needed maybe for a sidewalk in a grass area. This would be the areas where we think that there are actual impacts to a building. Property lines are shown on this map. Directions of traffic are shown with arrows, whether it's a through lane or left or right turn lanes. Signalized intersections that we're proposing as signalized will have that little traffic signal with the red, yellow, green balls on it, so folks can see where we're proposing to have a signalized intersection. And that makes a difference because the signalized intersections have a little bit more impact to right away and expand the roadway out because of turn lanes. The LRT alignment within that LRT track area is shown in blue. And then another key figure is the little zebra stripe bar that we have, would show if an alternative has an access impact. So if it's an alley or a driveway, that bar would show where it would be where that would be closed with that alternative. And then again, we want to make sure that we're showing our transit connection areas with these alternatives. So section 7. So let's dive into section 7. The area that we're going to look at a couple of the alternatives is section 7A and 7B that's shown on that graphic towards the top in the dashed blue box. Some of our design challenges here are currently there's a lot of unsignalized intersections that go through on Lowry Avenue. And with the train in place, obviously, if there's a crossing on the tracks, we need to make sure that those are signalized. So those signalized intersections will have the potential for impacts on the properties around there, because of turn lanes that are required and needed. So what we're seeing is mostly residential land use in this area, and we'll show some of those property impacts. Some of the things that we still need to, as we choose a route alternative and we get into design, would be we're going to want to make sure that we have adequate pedestrian and bike crossing on here. So if we'll have signalized intersections for traffic, but we need to make sure that folks, every few blocks have the opportunity to get across that alignment. And so where those pedestrian crossings would go could have a potential further impacts on properties along the alignment. But that's kind of a future design thing as we move into that next year. So many of the options that we have here are really focused on geometry adjustments. So either moving the road geometry around within that right of way, or changing locations of the stations here. So this is why we're going to zoom in quite a bit more. This is kind of give everybody a little bit of impact of where we're going to look at along this alignment for those sections, and see how the different alternatives can change how the impacts are along this area. So the example we have here is between James Avenue and Lindale Avenue on Lowry Avenue. So again, a lot of information. If I was to show that map, it's about 8 feet long in a scale that's legible. So on section 7A, one of the key things to look at here is we're looking at a station location, which is shown in yellow near Emerson and Fremont, where the D line is coming in. So this is a good apparent transit connection area, and why we would look at having a station in this area. The blue line is center running at grade light rail alignment through here. You can see where we have signalized intersections at James, Emerson, Fremont, and Lindale through this area. Again, as we get farther into design, after a route is chosen, then we'll start looking at in between those signalized intersections how we can get pedestrian crossings in. But this shows where that station would go with those signalized intersections, what the potential impacts would be to some of the properties around here, and that's shown in those pink areas. So I think there's, in this one here, probably about 10 to a dozen properties that are impacted. Also, you can see in those green boxes some of the publicly held properties that are in this section of the corridor. Any questions, Chair, before I move with the alternative?
Any questions at this point? Right.
Okay, so
keep going.
So section 7AB is an alternative to what we just saw. So by looking at some of the geometry options that we'd have, moving the station location, we have a chance to mitigate or change what some of those impacts would be, and what the challenges would be with the design, and show some different opportunities. So this slide here kind of focuses more on that same area near Emerson Fremont. What you can barely see, and we have the next image will show is move the station down towards Lindale Avenue. So we're moving it farther away from where that connection would be at Emerson Fremont to D line, but taken over to Lindale Avenue, where there's also those opportunities for connections through here. So with the station in this location near Lindale Avenue, along Lowry, there is quite a bit of right of way in this area that's shown where by that station. So by putting the station here, we have less impacts to private property through this area, and we could get a station in at Lindale that fits very well. And can we go back to the first slide, please? One of two. So and what is shown here is where we had that 10 to a dozen property impacts because of the station location and signals in here. By moving that station down, it gives us an opportunity to to mitigate or not have those impacts out here. So this is an example of those geometric alternatives that we have out there and how we can adjust for impacts and with some different design. And so those are the two options or two alternatives that we're showing for section 7 up on Lowry Avenue. We want to move forward here to section 3, which is an area that's very challenging along West Broadway. And again, as shown on that map or on that graphic in the yellow, are some of the multiple or this at least a half dozen design alternatives we have in that area to look at how geometric and actually operational adjustments could change how light rail and traffic could fit along West Broadway. So we've got many design concepts here, and what we're really trying to do is avoid those property impacts, specifically building impacts along the alignment. Our design challenges here include, the just how that roadway lays out, the curves, a lot of necessary turn lanes that will go in with the signalized intersections. I believe all of our alternatives keep all the existing signalized intersections that are there. And our alternatives really focus on geometry changes as well as roadway and LRT operational adjustments. So this is where we'll start talking about, okay, if we put everything on West Broadway, how does it fit? What are those impacts? And then what are our alternatives? Can we do something else with that operational adjustment? Can we bring 21st Avenue into the design as an option for either roadway, LRT, or both to help us out with some of those impacts and minimize those? So next slide, please. Because of the complexity of these drawings, we've put together some more of line drawing schematics just to show people schematically how traffic could operate with each one of these section alternatives out here. So what I'm showing you here is a graphic that shows the existing conditions on both West Broadway and 21st Avenue. So with that, there's a lane of traffic in each direction on both West Broadway and 21st. And then we also have some of the existing concepts or graphics showing how existing looks out there today. So either West Broadway with 4 lanes in each direction, that existing graphic is at Emerson and West Broadway. And then on the right-hand side is 21st Avenue, the existing, it's a 2-lane street that goes just a block north of West Broadway. So next slide, please. So section 3A-B is an example. Again, we showed 2 examples on section 7. We're just going to show 2 examples now of section 3 just for time's sake, although there are quite a few and those are available online. But this section 3A-B shows if we were to come up Lindale Avenue and keep both the right or keep 2 lanes of traffic or a lane of or directional traffic each direction on West Broadway, as well as have bidirectional light rail on West Broadway, how it would look. So the glimpse down there shows a mid-block of how it would fit with the lane of traffic on either side with the guideway at grade, sun running along there, and then sidewalks on the outside of this area. And if we didn't have to have stations or signalized intersections, things fit very well. But can we go to the next slide, please? But as we start looking at a station location here, with a close proximity to Emerson Fremont, again, D-line, it makes a really good key location to connect with those transit opportunities. We're showing a station here, basically centered between Emerson and Bryant, centered on DuPont Avenue in this location with the traffic on either side of that center running guideway. But with the signalized intersections, with that station and widening out, you can see in pink some of the different impacts to buildings that this alternative would have. And so this and a couple other options are the basis of why we'd want to take a look at some operational changes out there. So section 3, alternative 3DA, quite a few of these, is just one of the examples of how we could incorporate 21st Avenue and how it would work operationally with operations on West Broadway. So in this section, we keep both lanes of traffic on West Broadway and move the light rail up to 21st Avenue. So the both directions of light rail would be on 21st Avenue, and the photos or the graphics on the bottom show how that would work with West Broadway Avenue. Basically, it would remain, look existing like it does now, with traffic going both directions through there. And then on 21st, how that would look in this location with light rail running down 21st, and it's a little bit difficult to see in that graphic, but there are some alleys and connections there that we would want to maintain along 21st, so we can keep traffic from the alleys flowing around that area. So next slide, please. This is the alternative graphic that we put together. You can see that there are still impacts to some buildings and properties through here with this alignment and how it works, but we were able to minimize a lot of the impacts that were shown on West Broadway with this alignment. So what we're showing here in the gray on West Broadway, again, is maintaining those traffic lanes through this area, maintaining those pedestrian connections on West Broadway, but moving the light rail up with a station, again, centered on between Emerson and Bryant Avenue. And then as we move farther to the west of the screen over towards the left, that alignment would come behind the Minneapolis Public School building there, and then diagonally come through the block between Irving and Girard and connect back up with West Broadway in this area. So quite a bit of information I just went through. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we have. Any questions on this information, Chair?
That's a lot of material, and I know we're not going to get into every little thing, but that really gives us a flavor of the detail that you're approaching. Any questions for Nick or the team?
Hi, this is Nicole Bueller from the Blue Line Coalition.
Hi, Nicole.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Thank you. So you mentioned that you'd be reaching out to the folks who have properties or buildings that could be impacted, shaded in pink. What's the timeline for that?
Chair Nicole, that is actually happening right now. A lot of it is Sophia and her team have been going out, knocking on doors, leaving flyers, meeting with a lot of those businesses and properties along the alignment. So that has been happening, and will continue to move forward here.
Well, and I thank you for that work, but I have a property. My house is shaded in pink, actually, and I have not been contacted by anyone. So thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Is there like a block by block strategy, and I'm just still on the list of people to get to?
Nicole, did you not receive either the mailed letter that we sent to your address or the flyer that I left on all the doors?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, we'll check that, and maybe we can just email and set up a meeting just at your convenience.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? That's a lot of material, I know. Well, Nick, thank you. I think the big couple of takeaways. One is there's a lot of options that are in the process of being developed, even within the two main decisions, which is the two alignments we're looking at. So, and when you get to 3D-A, I mean, there's no end to it, except I think it really helpful for us to kind of see some of these larger, alternatives that'll be community-led trade-offs. So, and the other thing is, and maybe to Nicole's point, this is not where we're just showing virtual slideshows. This is very much of an in-person process, and I can see why the in-person engagement is so important. And I know that the team has been going kind of door to door and and so we still are in the middle of that. And so I know that we're moving quickly, but it is when it is have to be kind of person by person, block by block, house by house. We got to make sure that that process is thorough enough that everybody gets a chance to kind of understand what we're looking at. Yeah, particularly when we're going through these narrow corridors. And I know also you've been working a lot with the Minneapolis staff, so hats off to them. And we've been meeting with Minneapolis officials, so they're deeply engaged in this process too. Any other last questions before we get into? Well, thanks, Nick. Let's get into. Yeah, go ahead.
My apologies, Felicia.
Oh, hi,
I
Felicia.
did have a question, or maybe wondering, as we're both as I've been able to kind of see these visuals a couple of times now, and also check in with a few community members after they've attended workshops. And I'm wondering, how the county or Met Council are preparing to help resource the ongoing engagement that I'm recognizing and a lot of us know that we need. So to Nicole's point around needing more of that door to door, and I promise you it will not be enough just through November until we get the draft report, because there's still going to be, at the rate we're going, there's still going to be such a large group of people that we just will not touch. And I am concerned about the rising rates in COVID and how that may shift how we're able to engage folks over the winter and into through next year. And so I think one thing I want to continue to drive is that I know there's a deadline here for the draft report, but there's like no deadline. There's absolutely no cap on the engagement and the fact that that needs to be ongoing. So I just really want us to think about, I know the engagement cohort, those contracts are coming up to an end. What is the continuity plan? What is the sustainable through this, what, generation project, once in a lifetime project, commitment to resourcing this engagement work? Because right now everybody's feeling overwhelmed by these visuals. And if what we're going into this draft report in Minneapolis is that everybody's overwhelmed, folks are understanding like, okay, where we're in this process, we need to decide between Broadway and Lindell, but like, that's like not it. I know that that is a goal right now in the space of the project team, but right now community needs more ongoing engagement. Some of it has been really good and insightful recently, so we just don't want that to end. So that is something I really wanted to elevate, and also kind of pose to you all around where you all are with that, and what we can anticipate, right? So WBC would be an organization interested in being resourced for that ongoing engagement. And, you know, it's budget time for a lot of us. And so us really understanding what we can anticipate from your space around helping resource that is going to be important for us. So thank you for that time.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Felicia. And getting back to it, it is a marathon. So how do we resource that marathon? Sophia, you had your ready to answer.
Yeah, and I just really want to take this space first to acknowledge Felicia and other members of the current community cohort in really just doing really, really excellent work. And that the value that they've brought to the project process, you actually can't put dollars behind it, right? It's and just making sure that how we step into the world is thought through and all that kind of stuff. So just first wanting to really recognize their contribution and just also acknowledge exactly what Felicia said. This project requires a significant amount of engagement. And I think we've seen how this model of working directly with these community-based and cultural organizations brings a ton of value. And you know, we're in the space where contracts are coming to an end, and we can kind of see the needs of next year, right? We're going to go into an environmental process. We're going to have a lot more design work to do, and C. Terrence and crew at Cura are going to be running with their work. So I think Joan has requested some feedback from the existing cohort and what's worked, what hasn't, kind of what you could do differently. But the project team does plan to kind of put together a proposal to continue to contract with these community-based organizations, and hearing that budgets are coming due and we need to get that rolling, but just wanting to express that commitment and demonstrate that need. The project also, we had OLU for a while and not, but the project also just knows that we need community engagement staff support to help make sure that the cohort is resourced and responded to and all that kind of stuff. So kind of definitely want to reflect the good work and build upon it as we move into the future, and even more questions to be answered. And to Felicia's point as well, right, there is a lot of information. And while we're trying to come to which route we'll focus on, there is a lot of time to basically get into these details, so that some of that overwhelming feeling, we can kind of mitigate that as we progress into next year, and can really focus in. So we really wanted, it is a lot right now, but we've unlocked the new set of information, and we'll continue to dive into that as we build upon it.
Thanks,
Chair. Hi, good morning. It's Dan Solar. Really quick, I want to just recognize that public engagement, if anything, only gets more involved, right? I mean, construction is a huge element of when we get there. Should we get there, that continued public engagement is important. And so I would agree that both Met Council and the county have seen the idea of using outside entities, and our cohort to help with this has truly been a success. And so we will be looking at what I guess we'll call public engagement 3.0 looks like as we complete these cohort contracts, what that will look like and how we'll continue to partner. It will be something that will be front of mind here over the next months.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. And but as Felicia says, we have COVID impacts. I mean, we have to be creative and safe, and a lot happening. Any other last questions? We'll get to the evaluation criteria, which we touched on a bit earlier in the meeting. But Sam, she's going to share our project evaluation criteria and where we stand.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, and good morning, everybody again. Just wanted to, as you can sense, we have November is really a lot of technical data that's coming out, and it's born in really supporting the work that we are doing just in that outreach piece. And we feel it, we hear it, we understand folks have some, it's really hard to understand in just a 30-minute presentation, and really understand the need for us to give space and give room to let folks digest and process and come back to us and talk to us about some of the alternatives that we're showing, some of the concepts, get into that. So with that, we had planned to talk a little bit about what the framework would be for our evaluation criteria. Just in our last few weeks, we've understand again from community members that would probably be a lot right now. And very early on, our commitment was to say we're going to move at the speed of trust, and we're going to trust what we're hearing from community members to say, let us spend a little bit more time looking at these concepts and getting into them a little deeper. So what we are going to recommend and share with you today is that evaluation framework is still there. We are still working on our route principles and our engagement principles. We're still moving forward with that. What we would like to come back to you in December at the next meeting is really take this opportunity to hear from the community so we understand where values begin to come in and help us develop some of that criteria that ultimately will help move this project forward. So we're really also, as a project team, using this space to hear from the community and help us craft some of that criteria and want to bring that forward, not only through our advisory committee process here, but back to the community as well as the cohort as well. So what that looks like in timeline, if we can move to the next slide, is that as we receive input through the workshops and conversations with community members and residents and businesses. We'll hone and kind of refine some of that draft criteria. That will be the focus of our discussion in December. And it will be included as an element within the draft report itself in December. So not only will community members be commenting on the draft report, its contents, its supporting documentation, it will also provide an opportunity for community members to actually provide comment on the criteria themselves. So it wouldn't be finalized in any shape or form. It really would be out for public review and inspection and discussion with us as well. So I think the project team just felt a little bit more comfortable with that approach, knowing that we have a lot of technical data in November and December to get through with community members, and we really wanted to give the time and space that's needed to begin to talk about evaluation when folks were more focused on that conversation. So Chair, I'm happy to take any questions about that, but that is where we are in terms of our timeline, and really looking forward to having this conversation next time we get together.
So next month, we're going to have an opportunity for a robust discussion, and I really appreciate the work in developing this. Yeah, any questions for Sam or this process? All right, stay tuned. Next meeting is scheduled for December 9th, but my understanding is that this is a little bit up in the air. We may need to push it back 1 week to Thursday the 16th or even the 17th to kind of coincide with the release of the draft report. So and I know people's calendars are full, so we should try to get on that really soon. If there is, we're going to reach out to make sure we can get on everybody's calendar. But that's a little asterisk on that date. Well, we have a few minutes early. I want to thank everybody for participating in this meeting. This is always kind of inspiring and interesting for everyone. I also want to end that during this meeting, we have publicly announced a promotion of a key Met Council staff member. Sam O'Connell is going to be the new Director of Public Engagement Outreach for the whole Met Council. So, which is, I have to say, it warms my heart that Sam has shown such leadership, and we've witnessed it, but also really a broader lens and help take Met Council and to the next level and develop trust. So I said to Sam, it's really an easy thing. Just build trust for a large regional agency. She said, I can do that. But more importantly, I want to make sure that you know, everyone here in this call knows that Sam is going to continue to be engaged, that the Blue Line extension is one of the key priorities for Met Council as it is for everybody else on this call. And so we're not leaving the engagement process from Met Council staff high and dry, but we will try to backfill and make sure we have resources. So we're not losing, we're not skipping a beat. And if you just could clone Sam a few times, then our problems would be solved. But sadly, we can't do that. But I wanted you all to hear it from me, and how thrilled I am, and I think we all will benefit. So having said that, enjoy the holiday time. I know it's busy for everybody. Nicole mentioned budgeting times. We all have that. So, on top of everything else that maybe in our personal lives. But I really look forward to that December meeting, and obviously a lot of in-person engagement along the way. Thank you all, and enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.